bloody hot today, so it's the perfect time to actually talk about jackets, in particular Gore Tex. I have had tons of discussions about Gore Tex. I don't like it whatsoever. The reason for it is because the majority of people who buy those jackets, they don't need them. So in terms of production, there is a definitely like a overproduction of those kind of items. No one really needs it. There's only a few people who actually need it, and certain groups of people who are absolutely in need of those kind of things. And those are, to a certain degree, skiers, in my opinion, especially when it's like powder snow that is fairly wet and all. If you're like in minus 40 degrees, it doesn't really matter. But if you go in like in snow that is fairly moist, when you start carving and whatnot, um, you do have a lot of snow spray on you. And then you definitely are in need of a shell jacket that actually protects you from all the wetness. But for the majority of people who are going like, on ski tours and stuff like that, you don't need it. The other group definitely is expedition people, who are really relying on a shell that is waterproof, that really protects them from the outside elements. Especially when it comes to situations where you are forced to keep on going, even though there's a storm coming in or what have you, then you definitely need. But for the majority of people, which includes me, going on trips, you don't need it. Um, Most people, in particular here in Scandinavia, you're going out on tours on trails and you basically go from cabin to cabin. Maybe you're going from like just having your tent set up and whatnot, but you are always able to use wood and dry your clothes. Um, and the other aspect is simply, if you're going out on a tent tour, why the hell would you keep on going when there's a snowstorm going, or in the opposite side, when it comes to summer and whatnot, um, going out when it's bloody hard raining, because you also don't want to get all your other stuff wet, you know, or full of snow or what have you, So all that is redundant for the majority of people. And that includes most of the long-term trips even, if you're going out for a month or so, because you're always calculate with a higher ratio of food and whatnot, unless you're going really on a hard expedition where you have to meticulously plan every little detail and then you have a very little safety margin. If that is the case, then have at it, spend $600, $800 for a jacket. Otherwise, it's not necessary. And I'm not talking about like, oh, why the hell do you buy that? I'm talking about like, don't spend the money if you don't really need to. That is the point, you know? You don't need it. There is a slight discomfort in certain areas, but there's also a huge ass plus side, which is, um, especially when you have high activity and whatever, that stuff doesn't breathe whatsoever. There's a reason why there's so many bloody zippers on them. It's to actually get rid of all the moist and everything, that you're producing while working out, just in general, like dragging a pulka behind you or what have you, or just generally hiking and you're working up a sweat and whatnot. But also on the other side, when you're actually just quote unquote resting and just barely moving, and in the wintertime, you still vaporize a lot due to the fact that you have to stay warm. The body produces a lot of vapor just to stay warm, So in both aspects, you're producing a lot of heat that has to go somewhere. And if it's not well ventilated, you have moisture on the inside of the fabric because it doesn't get out. And if the Gore Tex manufacturers tell you otherwise, or the person, the clerk in the store, tells you otherwise, they're just bullshitting you, or they have no fucking idea. A little bit windy, hopefully the sound is not that bad. It's nice though, getting a little bit of breathing going as well in my case here. But anyway, so in general, you can say Gore Tex doesn't really work that well as advertised, so why would you pay the premium? The on two aspects that I want to mention is one is running, you know, if it starts raining or whatever, you just put on a jacket or whatever and keep on going. Then I actually use a Gore Tex jacket. But you know why? Because I got it pretty much for free. You know, I paid 25 euros for that one. Because it is from a second-hand shop and it was barely used. So that's why I'm using it. You know, otherwise I would also go for a windbreaker jacket. Much better, breathe a little bit, doesn't entirely, it's not entirely waterproof. But this one, if you start running, it's from the outside it's waterproof, but not from the inside. You're starting to sweat like hell, so you're wet anyway. You know, it doesn't matter if you're getting wet from the outside or from the inside. Doesn't matter. You know, you're getting wet regardless. So, take that for what it's worth, you know. This one here, by the way, 2 layers. As you can hear, it's bloody noisy. And that only amplifies in the winter time. When it's like minus 30 degrees outside, the majority of people still believe that when you put on a shell jacket, you're getting warmer. No, you're just wind protected. So it feels like you're warmer, but in the end, it doesn't give you any insulation. It just protects you from the outside. And that you can achieve by just wearing another shell. This one here is pure cotton. Works. There's a few downsides. It's a bit heavier, you know, but it's much quieter. It's still a little bit stiff, but it's much less stiff and much quieter than actually wearing a 3-layer or a 2-layer Gore-Tex. Doesn't matter, you know. They all pretty much work the same. In high activity, you have one downside. It breathes a little bit more, but um, you tend to have like sweat building up, and then it's getting stiff. However, it still vaporizes out, you know, uh, uh, rather than actually staying with you, you know, and just like building up on the inside. So it depends a little bit on how you work with it. So the more important part of all those things that I just mentioned is learn to work with the fabric that you have as well. You know, if you can't afford $800 Gore-Tex, why would you? You know, you don't need it necessarily. Like I said, no one is going out when it's pouring rain. No one is going out when it's like a snowstorm going on because you have no fucking idea where you're actually going, you know, unless you're really forced to. But that is like, you know, it's like a 0.001% of the population is actually in need of those kind of things, you know. The people watching this video, no. Neither am I, you know, so that's why I'm wearing this. And you know, you get that for half a price. I used to have a Fiat Evan jacket, a Parker, for the winter that I was wearing a cotton polyester mixture. I was wearing that for like 5 years or something like that. Perfect, you know, because the majority of time you actually like, you know, you have your puff jacket that you're wearing, and that one protects you pretty well. And if it's getting a little bit of a you know, if there's a little bit of snow falling down or whatever, then you just put another layer over it. The majority of time you can either dry it out if you need to, or otherwise, you know, if it's really getting windy and the storm coming in, you know, then you just set up your tent, go into a cabin or what have you, you know, and then you're protected from the outside. And that is what the majority of people actually do. So you don't need all that crap, you know. Just buy the minimum of stuff that's more than fine, you know. And if you're going out on a day trip and you only have a city jacket, well, put that in your backpack, you know, and go out. You know, don't go to the shop. Yeah, I'm going out on a 2-day trip, you know, and I need a new Gore-Tex jacket. Don't do that. It's just spending money for nothing, and then it's just in your drawer or what have you. You know, don't spend all that crap, all that money, you know, for stuff that you not necessarily need. And that in the end is more sustainable than just looking on like, yeah, what is like the best um, recycled fabric or whatever. Just buy stuff that you actually need, you know, that is necessary. That is pretty much what I'm saying here, you know. And Gore-Tex, highly overrated, you know. Take that with for what it's worth, you know. I for God's sake, I'm living in a tent, you know, taking it, buying the bare minimum, shredding the stuff, you know, until it's done, and then I'm buying new stuff, you know, because I don't need 2, 3 things of the same kind of style of using, you know. You need one or two sets of clothes for that, and then two sets, one or two sets for that, you know. So summer, winter, you know, and in between you can work certain things out, you know. However, I have a rain jacket. It's a bad one, but it still is a little bit better, you know, than the majority of Gore Tex stuff ever will be, you know. When I'm sitting on the quad and training the dogs in autumn time, it's sometimes really necessary, you know. Otherwise, uh, it's a pain in the ass, you know, if you're sitting there for like 3 4 hours, you know, and just getting poor rain on you. Anyway, have a good one.